The highway stretched before Marcus' chin like a ribbon of black ice, illuminated only by the weakening beams of his headlights. Snow fell in thick curtains, transforming the world into a hostile, colorless void. He shouldn't have been driving in this. Every rational part of his brain screamed that truth, but rationality had abandoned him somewhere around exit 47, replaced by a desperate, clawing need to get home. His phone buzzed again. He didn't look. Couldn't look. The road demanded every fragment of his attention, and even that wasn't enough. His knuckles had gone white on the steering wheel, and his shoulders ached from the tension of fighting the wind that buffeted his ancient Honda Civic like it was made of paper. The call would be from Diane. His ex-wife. His soon-to-be ex-wife. The woman who had finally, mercifully, legally stopped being his wife 3 hours ago in a courthouse 200 miles behind him. The same woman who now had full custody of their daughter. Sophie. 8 years old. Laughing eyes. Missing front tooth. His entire world, reduced to supervised visits and child support payments. Marcus's vision blurred, and he told himself it was the snow. Just the snow. The radio had lost its signal 20 miles back, leaving only static to compete with the howl of the wind. He reached out to turn it off, and in that split second, that single moment of divided attention, the deer appeared. It was massive, a buck with antlers that seemed to fill his entire windshield. Marcus jerked the wheel left. The Honda fishtailed. The world became a kaleidoscope of white and black, spinning, spinning. He heard himself shout, a wordless sound of pure animal fear. The impact came from the right side. A tree, his mind registered dimly. Then a second impact, this one from the front. Another tree. The airbag deployed, slamming into his face like a fist. The world went white, then red, then mercifully, blessedly dark. Consciousness returned in fragments. Cold. So cold his bones ached. Pain in his chest, his ribs, his head. Wetness on his face. Blood. Snow. Marcus forced his eyes open. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks, and through it, he could see nothing but darkness and falling snow. The engine had died. He tried to move and gasped as pain lanced through his left side. Something was wrong with his ribs. Maybe broken. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers numb and clumsy. Found it wedged between the seat and the center console. The screen was cracked, but it lit up when he touched it. No signal. Of course, no signal. Battery, 12%. Time, 11:47 p.m. Temperature, -8 degrees Fahrenheit. Marcus let out a shaky breath that turned to vapor in the freezing air. The heater was dead with the engine. He was wearing a suit, expensive, tailored, purchased specifically for the divorce proceedings because Diane's lawyer had made some comment about his slovenly appearance during the custody hearings. The jacket was wool, but it might as well have been tissue paper against this cold. He tried his door. It was jammed, pressed against a tree trunk. The passenger side, he leaned over, crying out as his ribs screamed in protest, was similarly blocked. The back doors were buried in snow that had already drifted against the car. Trapped. The word settled over him like a shroud. He was trapped in a dead car, in sub-zero weather, with no signal and a dying phone, on a highway that had seen maybe 3 other cars in the last hour. Marcus closed his eyes and thought of Sophie. He'd promised to call her tonight after the hearing. Had promised to explain, in whatever way an 8-year-old could understand, why Daddy wouldn't be living with her anymore. Why Mommy had one. His phone buzzed. A text, somehow fighting through whatever minimal signal existed. Diane, you need to call Sophie. She's crying. You promised. He tried to reply, but the message wouldn't send. He tried to call. Nothing. The phone was just a useless rectangle of glass and metal, mocking him with its inability to connect him to the only person who mattered. Another buzz. Battery, 8%. Marcus made a decision. He opened his video camera and hit record. "Sophie, baby, it's Daddy." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry I couldn't call tonight. I wanted to. I tried to. I want you to know that I love you. More than anything in this world. What happened with Mommy and me, that's not your fault. It's never been your fault. You're the best thing I ever did, kiddo. The only thing I got right." Tears ran down his cheeks, freezing in the cold air. "I'm going to see you again soon, okay? Real soon. We'll go to the park, like I promised. We'll feed the ducks. You can get extra popcorn, even though it makes them fat." He tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. "I love you, Sophie. I love you so much." He ended the recording and tried to send it. The phone spun, trying to find a signal. Trying. Battery, 5%. "Come on," Marcus whispered. "Come on, please." Nothing. The phone went dark. Dead. He was alone in the truest sense of the word. Alone in the dark, in the cold, with pain radiating through his body and no way to call for help. No way to say goodbye. Marcus had never been a particularly religious man, but he found himself praying. Not for rescue, that seemed too much to ask. Just for someone to find the video on his phone. For Sophie to know, in the end, that he'd been thinking of her. That's when he saw the lights. Welcome back to our channel. Your participation has made our journey here very interesting. Before we continue with the story, please support our channel by subscribing, clicking the like button, and turning on notifications. Please leave a comment and suggest other video topics you would like us to work on. Thank you for your support. Now let's get back to the story. At first, he thought he was hallucinating. 2 points of light, distant and wavering through the snow. But they were moving. Getting closer. Another car. Marcus laid on the horn. The sound was weak, barely audible over the wind, but he held it down until his hand cramped. The lights kept coming. Then they slowed. Stopped. He couldn't see much through the cracked windshield, but he saw a figure emerge from the vehicle, a truck, he thought, though the snow made it hard to tell. The figure moved toward him, a dark shape against the white. A face appeared at his window. A woman, maybe 60, with weathered features and sharp eyes. She said something, but he couldn't hear through the glass. She tried his door, confirmed it was jammed, then disappeared. Marcus's heart hammered against his broken ribs. She was leaving. She'd seen the situation was too complicated and she was leaving him to. The passenger window shattered inward. Not from force, but from a careful removal. The woman was there, brushing away the safety glass, reaching for the lock. "Easy now," she said, her voice rough as gravel. "Let's get you out of there before you freeze to death." Her name was Ruth Miller, and she drove a Ford F-250 that looked like it had survived multiple apocalypses. The interior smelled like coffee and dog, and the heater blasted air so hot it burned Marcus's frozen skin. "Drink this." Ruth thrust a thermos at him. "Hot coffee. No sugar, but beggars can't be choosers." Marcus's hands shook so badly he could barely hold it. Ruth took it back, unscrewed the lid, and held it to his lips like he was a child. The coffee was bitter and scalding and absolutely perfect. He drank until she pulled it away. "Slow down. You'll make yourself sick." She was examining him with a practiced eye. "Ribs hurt?" "Yeah. Probably cracked." "You're not coughing blood, so that's good. Means they didn't puncture a lung." She pulled a blanket from the back seat and wrapped it around his shoulders. "Head. Fuzzy. Concussion, most likely." "What's your name?" "Marcus." "Marcus Chen." "Well, Marcus Chen, you picked a hell of a night to wreck your car." She put the truck in gear and carefully pulled back onto the highway. There's a hospital about 40 miles north, but the roads are getting worse. Might not make it through. There's a motel closer, 15 miles. We'll hole up there, and I'll get you proper help in the morning. My phone, Marcus said. It died. I need to, my daughter. There's a charger in the glove box. Help yourself. Marcus fumbled it open and found not one but 3 different types of charging cables, neatly organized. He plugged in his phone and waited for it to revive. The screen lit up. Still no signal. Won't get one until we're closer to town, Ruth said, reading his expression. Sorry. Marcus closed his eyes, fighting back a fresh wave of despair. Sophie would be asleep by now anyway. Diane would think he'd ignored her message out of spite. One more failure to add to the mountain. Bad day? Ruth asked. Marcus let out a sound that might have been a laugh if it hadn't hurt so much. Divorce was finalized today. Lost custody of my daughter. Then I lost my car. Then I nearly lost my life. Well, you're still breathing. That's something. Is it? Ruth glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Yes. It is. Trust me on that. They drove in silence for a while. The snow was getting worse, if that was possible. Ruth drove with the confidence of someone who'd spent a lifetime on bad roads in worse weather, but even she had to slow to a crawl. What were you doing out here? Marcus asked. In weather like this? Heading home from my son's place. He lives up in Brookfield. I stayed for dinner, left too late. She shrugged. Been driving these roads for 40 years. Takes more than a little snow to scare me. Lucky for me. Lucky for both of us. I almost took Route 12 instead. Would have missed you completely. Marcus thought about that. About the infinite small choices that had led to this moment. If Ruth had taken Route 12. If he'd left the courthouse an hour later. If he'd checked into a hotel instead of trying to drive through the storm. If the deer had crossed the road 30 seconds earlier or later. So many variables, all aligning to put him in this truck, alive, instead of frozen in a coffin of metal and glass. Why didn't you, he asked. Take Route 12. Ruth was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Just had a feeling. My husband used to tease me about my feelings. Said I was part psychic, part stubborn mule. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He passed 5 years ago. Heart attack. Right in the middle of watching a baseball game. 1 minute he's yelling at the umpire, next minute he's gone. I'm sorry. Me too. She adjusted the heater. But you know what he told me, maybe a month before he died? He said, Ruthie, you've got to keep living even after I'm gone. Keep driving these roads. Keep helping people. That's what we do. That's what we owe each other. Marcus stared at her. What we owe each other. That's right. We're all just strangers until we're not. And sometimes, the strangers are the ones who save us when nobody else can. The motel materialized out of the storm like a mirage. The Pinewood Inn, according to the flickering neon sign. It looked like it had seen better days sometime in the 1970s, but it had lights and that was enough. Ruth parked as close to the office as possible. Stay here. Keep warm. I'll get us rooms. She was back in 5 minutes, shaking snow from her coat. Good news and bad news. They've got rooms. But the owner says if the snow keeps up, we might lose power. They've got a generator, but it's temperamental. Can't be worse than freezing in a car. That's the spirit. Ruth had gotten adjacent rooms. She helped Marcus to his, room 8, with a view of the parking lot and the forest beyond, and made sure he could get the door unlocked before heading to her own. Get some rest, she said. If you need anything, I'm right next door. Bang on the wall. Marcus collapsed onto the bed without even removing his shoes. Every part of his body hurt, but the pain was distant now, dulled by exhaustion. He should call Diane. Should charge his phone and try to explain. Instead, he closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. He woke to shouting. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then it came back, the crash, Ruth, the motel. He checked his phone, 3:17 a.m. He'd been asleep for less than 4 hours. The shouting came again. A man's voice, angry and slurred. Then a crash, like something being thrown. Marcus sat up, wincing. The sounds were coming from outside, from the direction of the motel office. He went to the window and peered through the thin curtains. A truck was parked at an angle in front of the office, its headlights still on. A man was visible in the spill of light, large, wearing a flannel jacket, gesticulating wildly. The motel owner, a small elderly man, stood in the doorway of the office, clearly trying to placate him. The large man shoved him. The owner stumbled back, fell. Marcus didn't think. He grabbed his jacket and was out the door before his conscious mind could weigh the wisdom of getting involved. His ribs screamed in protest, but he ignored them. "Hey," he shouted as he approached. "Hey, leave him alone." The large man turned. Up close, he was even bigger than Marcus had thought, 6'3", easily 250, with a beard and wild eyes. "Drunk, definitely drunk." "Who the hell are you?" the man demanded. "Someone telling you to back off." Marcus helped the motel owner to his feet. The old man was shaking. "Are you okay?" I'm fine," the owner said, but his voice trembled. "Sir, please, I told you, we're full. I don't have any rooms." "Bullshit," the drunk man roared. "I can see the vacancies sign. Those rooms are occupied, sir." "I'm sorry, but..." The man moved faster than Marcus expected. He grabbed the owner by the collar and slammed him against the doorframe. "I've been driving for 6 hours in this goddamn snow. You're going to give me a room?" Marcus stepped forward, putting himself between them. "Let him go." The man's eyes focused on Marcus with dangerous intensity. "Or what? Or I call the cops." The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah. Go ahead. They'll never make it out here in this storm. It'll be hours." He shoved Marcus, hard. Marcus stumbled, his vision blurring with pain as his ribs reminded him they were broken. He went down on one knee. That's when Ruth appeared. She came out of nowhere, moving with a speed that belied her age. In her hand was something Marcus couldn't quite identify in the dim light, some kind of spray can. "Back up," she said, her voice deadly calm. "Right now." The drunk man turned to her, sneered. "What are you going to do, Grandma?" Ruth sprayed him directly in the face. Bear spray, Marcus realized as the man started screaming, clawing at his eyes. Ruth grabbed Marcus by the arm and hauled him to his feet with surprising strength. "Inside," she ordered. "Now." They got the motel owner inside the office and locked the door. Outside, the drunk man was on his knees, still screaming, tears and mucus streaming down his face. "Jesus Christ, Ruth," Marcus gasped. "Bear spray," she said matter-of-factly. "I keep it for emergencies." This qualified. She turned to the owner. "You okay, Frank?" "I'm okay, Ruth. Thank you." Frank was pressing a hand to his head where it had hit the doorframe. "I told him we were full, but he wouldn't listen. Some people don't know how to listen." Ruth peered out the window. The man was crawling back toward his truck. "We should still call the police. Let them know what happened." Frank nodded and picked up the phone. His hands were still shaking. Marcus sat down heavily in one of the office chairs. Adrenaline was making his heart race, making the pain in his ribs pulse in time with his heartbeat. "You shouldn't have done that," Ruth said to him. "You're in no condition to play hero. Neither are you. I'm old. I'm allowed to be stupid." But she smiled when she said it. "Besides, I wasn't going to let him hurt Frank. We go back a long way." Frank hung up the phone. "They said they'll send someone as soon as they can, but with the roads." He shrugged. "Could be a few hours." "That's fine. He's not going anywhere fast." Ruth helped Marcus to his feet again. "Come on. Let's get you back to bed before you pass out." But Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. "What we owe each other." Ruth's words kept echoing in his head. What did he owe her? She'd saved his life, pulled him from a freezing car, given him shelter. And when danger came, she'd stepped in without hesitation, an old woman with a can of bear spray facing down a man twice her size. What did he owe the motel owner, a stranger he'd never met before tonight, whose only crime was trying to do his job? What did he owe the drunk man outside, who was also, in his own way, just trying to survive a brutal night? His phone buzzed. Signal had returned. Messages flooded in. "Diane, you're unbelievable." Sophie cried herself to sleep. "Diane, you promised to call her." "Diane, this is exactly why the judge gave me full custody." Marcus closed his eyes against the words. Each one was a knife, all the sharper because they were true. He had promised. He had failed. He opened a new message to Sophie, then stopped. What could he say? "I'm sorry I almost died" wasn't exactly appropriate for an 8-year-old. Instead, he pulled up the video he'd recorded in the car. Watched himself, broken and freezing, telling his daughter he loved her. He should delete it. It was morbid, a message from a man who'd thought he was dying. But something made him keep it. A reminder, maybe, of how fragile everything was. How quickly you could lose it all. Another buzz. This one made his heart stop. Unknown number, this is Detective Sarah Collins with State Police. We received a report of an altercation at the Pinewood Inn. Are you Marcus Chen? He typed back, yes. I'm one of the guests who was involved. Detective Collins, are you injured? Broken ribs from a car accident earlier tonight. But I'll live. Detective Collins, we're sending units to your location, but the roads are bad. ETA is approximately 2 hours. The man who assaulted you, is he still on the premises? Marcus got up, went to the window. The truck was still there, but he couldn't see the man. His truck is here. I don't see him. Detective Collins, stay inside. Lock your doors. If he approaches or tries to enter any rooms, call 911 immediately. Understood. Marcus locked the door and wedged the chair under the handle for good measure. Then he went to the wall that separated his room from Ruth's and knocked. Ruth? You awake? I am now. The cops are coming, but it'll be a couple hours. They said to stay inside. Good advice. Ruth? He pressed his palm against the wall. Thank you. For everything. I don't know how to. Don't. Her voice was firm. You don't owe me thanks. You just owe it forward. Oh, what forward? The help. The kindness. When you see someone who needs it, you give it. That's how this works. That's how we all get through. Marcus thought about that. About the chain of small mercies that had brought him here. Ruth's decision to take this highway. Her choice to stop when she saw his wrecked car. Frank renting them rooms despite the storm. Even his own stupid decision to intervene when Frank was being attacked. All of it connected. All of it mattering. Okay, he said softly. Okay, I will. He went back to bed but kept his phone close, the messages from Diane burning in his mind. He needed to make this right. Needed to show Sophie that he was still her father, still someone she could count on. But how? How did you prove you were reliable when you kept failing? He was still wrestling with that question when sleep finally claimed him. Morning came gray and cold. Marcus woke to silence, no wind, no shouting, just the muffled quiet of fresh snow. He checked his phone, 7:23 a.m. No new messages. The drunk man's truck was gone from the parking lot. A knock at his door made him jump. Marcus? It's Ruth. You alive in there? He opened the door. Ruth stood there with 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag. Frank's wife made breakfast sandwiches, she said, pushing past him into the room. Figured you could use some food. You look like hell, by the way. Thanks. Ribs still hurt? Like someone stabbing me with every breath. Good. Means they're healing. She handed him a coffee and a sandwich wrapped in foil. Eat. We need to talk. Marcus unwrapped the sandwich, egg, bacon, cheese on an English muffin. The smell made his stomach growl. He took a bite and nearly moaned. He hadn't realized how hungry he was. The drunk guy's gone, Ruth said. Left sometime around 4 a.m., according to Frank. Police showed up around 6, took statements. They're looking for him, but in this weather. She shrugged. Might take a while. As long as he's gone. That's not what I want to talk about. Ruth fixed him with a steady gaze. I want to talk about what happens next. For you. I'm going home. Soon as I can get a ride to a car rental place. And then what? Marcus set down the sandwich. What do you mean? I mean, what are you going home to? You said your divorce was finalized yesterday. You lost custody of your daughter. So what's waiting for you? That's not really your business. You're right. It's not. Ruth sipped her coffee. But I pulled you out of a freezing car last night. I got you to safety. I sprayed a violent drunk in the face for you. So humor me. What's waiting for you at home? Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. Who was this woman to interrogate him about his life? But when he looked at her face, he didn't see judgment. Just concern. An empty apartment, he admitted. A job I hate. And a daughter I'm only allowed to see every other weekend, supervised by a social worker because my ex-wife convinced a judge I'm unstable. Are you? What? Unstable. Are you? Marcus thought about the nights he'd spent drinking alone, staring at Sophie's empty bedroom. The times he'd called Diane at 2 a.m., crying, begging her to reconsider. The day he'd shown up at her new boyfriend's house, ready to fight, before cooler heads prevailed. Maybe, he whispered. Ruth nodded. At least you're honest. That's a start. She pulled something from her pocket and set it on the table between them. A business card. Dr. Patricia Howell, clinical psychologist specializing in grief, trauma, and family therapy. My daughter, Ruth said. She's good at what she does. Helped me after my husband died. Might be able to help you too. Marcus picked up the card. I can't afford therapy. She works on a sliding scale. And before you give me some macho bullshit about not needing help, let me tell you something. Ruth leaned forward. My son, the one I was visiting last night, he almost died 3 years ago. Pills. He was depressed after losing his job, his marriage fell apart, and he decided the world would be better off without him. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I found him, Ruth continued, her voice steady but her eyes bright with unshed tears. Brought him back from the edge. Got him into treatment. Now he's remarried, has a job he loves, and he's happy. But if I hadn't been there that day. She trailed off. My point is, you're not too broken to fix, Marcus. But you have to want to fix yourself. And you have to accept help when it's offered. Why do you care? Marcus asked. You don't know me. Because someone cared about me once, when I needed it. A stranger, just like you. And my husband told me to pay it forward. She stood up. So that's what I'm doing. The question is, are you going to accept it? Marcus looked at the card again. Thought about Sophie, about the messages from Diane. About the video on his phone where he'd said goodbye to his daughter because he thought he was dying. He didn't want to die. He wanted to live. But more than that, he wanted to be worthy of living. Worthy of being Sophie's father. Okay, he said. Okay, I'll call her. Ruth smiled. Good. Now finish your breakfast. I'm driving you to get a rental car in an hour, and I don't want you passing out on me from low blood sugar. The drive to the car rental place took them through a small town called Millbrook. The storm had passed, leaving everything coated in pristine white. Plows were out, clearing the main roads, and the morning sun made the snow sparkle like diamonds. Ruth drove in comfortable silence, occasionally pointing out landmarks. That's where Frank met his wife, the diner on the corner. Been married 42 years. And that's the church where my husband and I got married. Burned down in '98, but they rebuilt it. Marcus listened, drawn into the casual history of this place he'd never been before and would likely never visit again. It was strange how lives intersected. Ruth had her whole history here, decades of memories and connections, and he was just passing through. A stranger saved by chance and kindness. Ruth, he said. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Last night, you said your husband told you to keep helping people. That it's what we owe each other. But, how do you know when you've paid that debt? When you've done enough? Ruth was quiet for a long moment. You don't, she said finally. That's the thing about debts like that, they're not meant to be paid off. They're meant to be passed on. Someone saves you, you save someone else. Then they save someone else. It's a chain that never ends. Or at least, it shouldn't. But what if you can't? What if you're too broken, too messed up, to help anyone? Then you fix yourself first. And that's helping someone too, it's helping the person you're going to become. It's helping everyone who'll need you in the future. She glanced at him. You think your daughter doesn't need a father who's healthy and whole? That's not selfish, Marcus. That's responsible. The rental place was a small outfit next to a gas station. Ruth parked and walked in with him, somehow convincing the skeptical clerk that yes, this bedraggled man with the bruised face and cracked phone screen was capable of renting a vehicle. When the paperwork was done and Marcus had the keys to a Chevy sedan, he turned to Ruth. I don't know how to thank you, he said. I already told you. I know. Pay it forward. But Ruth, you saved my life. That's not something you just forget. Ruth reached out and squeezed his shoulder. Then don't forget. Remember. And when you see someone who needs help, you think of me and you help them. That's all I ask. She started to walk away, back to her truck. Ruth, wait. Marcus pulled out his phone. Can I get your number? I want to. I want to let you know how things go. With the therapy. With Sophie. Ruth smiled and recited her number. Marcus saved it as, Ruth Miller, saved my life. Drive safe, she said. And Marcus? Don't give up on yourself. You're worth fighting for. Then she was gone, her truck disappearing down the snowy street, and Marcus was alone again. But this time, the solitude felt different. Less like abandonment and more like possibility. The drive home took 6 hours. Marcus stopped twice, once for gas, once at a rest stop where he finally called Diane. She picked up on the third ring. Where the hell have you been? she demanded. Do you have any idea how worried Sophie was? How worried I was. I had an accident, Marcus said. Last night, driving home from the courthouse. I hit a tree. My phone died, and Oh my God. Are you okay? The concern in her voice caught him off guard. For a moment, she sounded like the Diane he'd married, the one who'd cared about him, before everything fell apart. Broken ribs. Concussion. But I'm alive. Jesus, Marcus. A pause. Did you go to a hospital? Not yet. I'm driving home now. I'll go to urgent care. You should have gone last night. You could have internal bleeding, or... A stranger saved me, he interrupted. An old woman named Ruth. She pulled me out of my car, got me to a motel, kept me safe. She didn't have to. She could have just driven past. Another pause. I'm glad she didn't. Me too. Marcus took a breath. Diane, I'm sorry about Sophie. I wanted to call her. I tried. But my phone died and there was no signal and... I know. I mean, I didn't know about the accident, but... I know you wouldn't ignore her on purpose. I was angry last night. I said things I didn't mean. This was new territory. Diane admitting she'd overreacted. Marcus didn't know how to navigate it. Can I talk to her? He asked. Is she there? She's at school. But I'll tell her you called. I'll tell her you're okay. Thank you. He hesitated. Diane? I want to be better. For Sophie. For everyone. I'm going to get help. Real help. Therapy. That's good, Marcus. That's really good. They talked for a few more minutes, awkward, halting conversation that still managed to feel like progress. When they hung up, Marcus felt lighter than he had in months. He made it home by mid-afternoon. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it, clothes on the floor, dishes in the sink, Sophie's drawings on the refrigerator. But instead of the usual suffocating despair, he felt something else. Determination. He pulled out Dr. Howell's business card and dialed before he could change his mind. Dr. Howell's office, a receptionist answered. Hi, my name is Marcus Chen. Ruth Miller gave me Dr. Howell's card. I'd like to make an appointment. Of course, Mr. Chen. Let me check her schedule. Is this an urgent matter? Marcus thought about the last 24 hours. The crash. The cold. The certainty of death. Ruth's kindness. The drunk man's violence. The weight of his failures pressing down on him like stones. Yes, he said. Yes, it's urgent. Dr. Patricia Howell had her mother's eyes, sharp and kind at the same time. Her office was warm and comfortable, with soft lighting and a couch that didn't feel like a cliché. So, she said, after Marcus had given her the abbreviated version of his last few days. What brings you here? And I don't mean Ruth, though I'm glad she sent you. What do you want to get out of therapy? Marcus had thought about this on the drive over. I want to be someone my daughter can be proud of. Someone who doesn't fall apart when things get hard. That's a good goal. But it's also pretty broad. Let's get more specific. What does falling apart look like for you? And so Marcus talked. He talked about the drinking. The late-night phone calls to Diane. The rage that would come out of nowhere, making him punch walls and throw things. The days he couldn't get out of bed. The times he'd thought about just giving up. Driving into a tree. Taking pills. Anything to make the pain stop. Dr. Howell listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions, taking notes. You've been through trauma, she said when he finished. Divorce is traumatic. Losing custody of your child is traumatic. And then you nearly died in a car crash. Your body and mind are responding to these events in ways that are actually quite normal, given the circumstances. It doesn't feel normal. That's because we're taught that mental health struggles are abnormal. Shameful. But they're not. They're human. She leaned forward. Marcus, I want to be clear about something. The work we do here. It's going to be hard. We're going to dig into painful things. You're going to have weeks where you feel worse before you feel better. But if you commit to it, if you do the work, I believe you can get to a place where you're not just surviving, but thriving. I want that, Marcus said. I really do. Then let's get started. The weeks that followed were exactly as hard as Dr. Howell had promised. Marcus started on antidepressants after a consultation with a psychiatrist. He attended therapy twice a week. He joined a support group for divorced fathers. He stopped drinking. And slowly, incrementally, things began to change. He started sleeping better. The rage attacks became less frequent. He cleaned his apartment and started cooking real meals instead of living on takeout. He called Sophie every night, and while the conversations were stilted at first, supervised by Diane or a social worker, they gradually became more natural. "Daddy, guess what?" Sophie said one evening, her voice crackling through the phone speaker. "I got an A on my math test." "That's amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." Ms. Henderson said I did really good on the word problems. "Remember when you helped me with those?" Marcus did remember. It had been during one of his supervised visits, working through homework together at a coffee shop while a social worker looked on. "I remember. You worked really hard on those. Will you help me again next time?" "Absolutely. Anytime you need me." After they hung up, Marcus sat in his clean apartment and let himself feel it, the pride, the hope, the terrifying fragility of rebuilding a relationship with his daughter. He texted Ruth, "Sophie got an A on her math test. Thought you'd want to know things are getting better." She replied immediately, "That's wonderful. See? You're doing the work. Keep going." He did keep going. Through the hard days and the harder nights. Through the sessions where Dr. Howell made him confront the things he'd done wrong, the ways he'd contributed to his marriage falling apart. Through the shame and the guilt and the grief. And then, 3 months after the accident, Diane called with unexpected news. "The social worker wants to recommend unsupervised visits," she said. "She thinks you've made real progress." Marcus's heart nearly stopped. "Really? Don't make me regret this, Marcus. If you screw up." "I won't. I swear to God, Diane, I won't." The first unsupervised visit was at a park, Sophie's choice. She wanted to feed the ducks, just like Marcus had promised in that video he'd recorded in his frozen car. She ran to him when she arrived, and Marcus caught her in a hug that made his still-healing ribs ache. But he didn't care. His daughter was in his arms, and for the first time in months, the world felt right. They fed the ducks stale bread that Marcus had specifically bought for this purpose. They talked about school and her friends and the new book she was reading. They didn't talk about the divorce or the custody arrangement or any of the painful things that had led to this moment. They were just a father and daughter, together in the sunshine, sharing a moment of simple joy. When it was time to go, Sophie hugged him again. "I love you, Daddy," she said. "I love you too, baby. So much. Are you better now? Mommy said you were sick, but you're better." Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with her. "I'm getting better. Every day. And I'm going to keep getting better, because I want to be the best dad I can be for you. You're already a good dad." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had to close his eyes against the tears. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me." Later, after he dropped Sophie back at Diane's house, Marcus drove to the overlook where he sometimes went to think. He pulled out his phone and called Ruth. Marcus. How are you? Good. Really good, actually. I just had my first unsupervised visit with Sophie. That's wonderful. How did it go? Perfect. It was perfect. He stared out at the city below. Ruth, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About paying it forward. About helping people. Oh. I want to do something. Something meaningful. But I don't know what. Ruth was quiet for a moment. What are you good at, Marcus? What skills do you have? I'm an accountant. Not exactly the most exciting. Stop that. Every skill has value. What do accountants do? Help people manage their money. File taxes. Financial planning. And who needs that kind of help? Marcus thought about it. Everyone. But especially people who are struggling. People going through, oh. There it is, Ruth said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. People going through divorce, Marcus said slowly. They need financial help. Especially women who've been out of the workforce. And men who suddenly have child support and alimony. They need someone who understands what they're going through. Sounds like you found your calling. But I can't just. I mean, I have a job. So keep your job. Do this on the side. Start small. Help one person. Then another. See where it takes you. It was so simple. So obvious. And yet the idea filled Marcus with an excitement he hadn't felt in years. Ruth, you're a genius. No, I'm just an old woman who's lived long enough to know that helping people is the only thing that really matters. Marcus started volunteering at a community center that offered free financial counseling. 2 evenings a week, he sat in a small office and helped people navigate their financial situations. Many of them were going through divorces. Some were dealing with job loss. Others were just trying to survive on minimum wage. He helped them set up budgets. Showed them how to build credit. Explained tax implications and retirement planning. And with each person he helped, he felt the weight on his chest, the weight he'd carried since the divorce, lift a little more. One evening, a woman came in. Late 30s, exhausted looking, with a toddler on her hip and a manila folder clutched in her free hand. I'm sorry, she said. I know it's almost closing time, but they said you might be able to help me. I'm going through a divorce and my lawyer says I need to understand our assets, but I don't even know where to start. It's okay, Marcus said gently. Sit down. Let's figure this out together. Her name was Jennifer. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years while her husband built his career. Now he was leaving her for someone else, and she was facing the terrifying prospect of starting over with 2 kids and no recent work experience. Marcus spent 2 hours with her, going through every piece of paper in her folder, explaining what mattered and what didn't, helping her understand her rights and her options. When they finished, Jennifer was crying. Thank you, she whispered. I was so scared. I thought I'd lose everything. You're going to be okay, Marcus told her. It's going to be hard, but you're going to make it through. And when you do, maybe you can help someone else. Pay it forward. Pay it forward. A stranger told me that once. She saved my life, and she said the only way to repay her was to help someone else. So that's what I'm doing. And maybe someday, you can do the same. Jennifer nodded, wiping her eyes. I will. I promise. As Marcus watched her leave, he thought about Ruth. About the chain of kindness that had started with her decision to stop on a snowy highway. She'd saved him. Now he was helping Jennifer. And someday, Jennifer would help someone else. The chain would continue, invisible threads connecting strangers across time and distance, each act of kindness rippling outward in ways they might never fully see. 6 months after the accident, Marcus got a call from an unknown number. Is this Marcus Chen? Yes. This is Officer James Wright with the State Police. We spoke briefly after the incident at the Pinewood Inn last December. Marcus's stomach clenched. Is something wrong? No, nothing like that. I'm actually calling with an update. We found the man who assaulted the motel owner. His name is Kyle Brennan. He's been arrested and charged. That's good. Good. There's more. After we arrested him, he asked if he could speak to you. He's in a treatment program now, court-ordered, and part of his recovery process involves making amends to the people he's harmed. Marcus didn't know what to say. You're under no obligation, Officer Wright continued. If you don't want to see him, that's completely understandable. But he's asked for the opportunity to apologize in person. It's up to you. Marcus thought about it. About the terrified motel owner. About Ruth with her bear spray. About his own demons and the work he'd done to face them. Okay, he said. I'll meet with him. The meeting took place at the treatment facility where Kyle Brennan was staying, a converted farmhouse on the outskirts of the city. Marcus sat in a small meeting room with a counselor present, waiting. When Kyle walked in, Marcus barely recognized him. The angry, violent drunk from that snowy night had been replaced by a thin, pale man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were clear but haunted. Mr. Chen, Kyle said, his voice shaking. Thank you for coming. I know you didn't have to. Sit down, Marcus said. Kyle sat, hands clasped tightly in front of him. I don't remember a lot about that night. I was drunk, which isn't an excuse, just the truth. But they told me what I did. How I attacked that old man. How I shoved you. How I could have really hurt someone. You did hurt someone. Multiple people. I know. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Kyle's voice cracked. I was going through a divorce. Lost my job. Lost my house. And instead of dealing with it, I just drank. Drove around in a storm like an idiot. Took my anger out on people who didn't deserve it. Marcus stared at him. It was like looking in a mirror showing him what he could have become if Ruth hadn't stopped that night. If he hadn't gotten help. Why did you want to see me? Marcus asked. To apologize. To tell you I'm getting help. To ask if there's anything I can do to make this right. You can't make it right. What's done is done. I know. Kyle looked down at his hands. But I'm trying. I'm 90 days sober. I'm in therapy. I'm working on myself. My counselor says that's the best thing I can do, fix myself so I never hurt anyone like that again. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. I was in a car accident that same night, he said quietly. Just a few hours before you showed up at that motel. I crashed into a tree, thought I was going to die. And a stranger saved me. Old woman named Ruth. She could have just driven past, but she stopped. Got me to safety. And you know what she told me? Kyle shook his head. She told me that when someone saves you, you owe it to them to save someone else. To pay it forward. To keep the chain going. Marcus leaned forward. I was a mess that night, Kyle. Angry, depressed, barely holding it together. And if Ruth hadn't helped me, if she hadn't convinced me to get help, I could have been you. Could have been the one hurting people because I was too broken to deal with my own pain. So what are you saying? I'm saying I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I've been forgiven for things I didn't deserve. And I'm saying that if you really want to make amends, do what I'm doing. Get better. Help someone else. Pay it forward. Kyle was crying now, silent tears running down his face. I don't know how. Start small. One day at a time. That's all any of us can do. The counselor spoke up. Kyle, we've talked about volunteering opportunities. Once you complete the program, there are places that need people who understand what it's like to struggle with addiction. I could do that, Kyle said, looking at Marcus. I could help people. Then do it. And every time you help someone, think of the people you hurt that night. Let that be your reminder of why it matters. They talked for a while longer. Kyle told him about his ex-wife, his kids, the job he'd lost. Marcus told him about Sophie, about therapy, about the community center where he volunteered. When Marcus left, he felt lighter. He'd faced the man who'd attacked him, who'd represented everything he feared becoming, and he'd found not a monster but another broken person trying to heal. He called Ruth on the drive home. I just met with Kyle Brennan, he said when she answered. The drunk from the motel. How did it go? Better than I expected. He's in treatment. Getting help. I told him to pay it forward. Ruth laughed. Look at you, spreading my philosophy. It's not just your philosophy anymore. It's mine too. It's the only thing that makes sense to me now. We're all connected. All responsible for each other. Strangers who become not strangers through small acts of kindness. You've come a long way, Marcus. Because of you. No. Because of you. I just gave you a push. You did the work. Marcus pulled into his apartment complex. Through his window, he could see other residents, strangers, most of them, people he'd never spoken to beyond a nod in the hallway. Each one carrying their own burdens, fighting their own battles. Ruth, can I ask you something? Of course. That night you stopped for me. You said you almost took a different route. What made you choose the one you did? Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Honestly? I don't know. Call it intuition. Call it fate. Call it whatever you want. But I've learned to trust those feelings. My husband used to say the universe puts us where we need to be, if we're paying attention. Do you believe that? I don't know if I believe in the universe having a plan. But I believe in people. I believe we have a choice, every day, to either help or harm. To connect or isolate. To save or abandon. She paused. I chose to help. And you were there. And that mattered. It mattered more than you know. Oh, I think I know. You've told me about Sophie, about your progress, about the people you're helping. I know exactly how much it mattered. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his car for a while, thinking. Tomorrow, he had another session with Dr. Howell. Tomorrow night, he had dinner with Sophie, unsupervised, just the two of them. This weekend, he was volunteering at the community center. His life wasn't perfect. The divorce was still final. The custody arrangement was still complicated. He still had hard days where the depression crept back in, whispering that he wasn't good enough, that he'd never be good enough. But he had tools now. People. Support. And most importantly, he had purpose. He was part of the chain. A link connecting Ruth to Jennifer to Kyle to countless others he hadn't even met yet. And that chain was stronger than any individual link. It was made of strangers who'd chosen, in crucial moments, to stop and help. To extend a hand. To save. A year after the accident, Marcus stood outside the Pinewood Inn, staring at the faded sign. The snow was gone, replaced by spring flowers that Frank's wife had planted in boxes along the office windows. The place looked less desolate in daylight, almost charming. He'd driven 3 hours to get here, making a pilgrimage to the place where his life had changed. Frank emerged from the office, older and more stooped than Marcus remembered, but his smile was warm. Marcus Chen. Ruth said you might stop by. You remember me? Course I do. Not every night someone gets bear sprayed in my parking lot. Frank chuckled. Come on in. Coffee's hot. The office was cluttered but clean. Frank poured them both coffee from a pot that looked like it dated back to the motel's construction. "How've you been?" Frank asked. "Good. Really good, actually. I wanted to thank you, for that night, for giving us rooms when the weather was so bad. Just doing my job. It was more than that. You could have turned us away when things got dangerous. But you didn't." Frank shrugged. "Ruth's an old friend. And you seemed like you needed help. Besides, what kind of person would I be if I closed the door on people in a storm?" Marcus thought about that question. What kind of person closed the door on people in a storm? Not just literal storms, but metaphorical ones. The storms of divorce, addiction, depression, loss. Too many people, he knew now. The world was full of closed doors. "I'm trying to be the kind of person who opens doors," Marcus said. "Ruth taught me that. Or reminded me, maybe. That we owe each other something. Help. Kindness. Witness. Witness. Being seen. Being known. When you're going through hell, sometimes the worst part is feeling invisible. Like nobody cares if you make it through or not." Marcus sipped his coffee. "But when someone stops, when someone sees you and helps you, that changes everything." Frank nodded slowly. "My father used to run this motel. Back in the 60s, during the civil rights movement, he made it a policy to never turn away anyone based on the color of their skin. Lost business for it. Got threats. But he said the same thing you just did, that being seen, being treated like a human being, that was worth more than money. Sounds like a good man." He was. "And he taught me something your Ruth taught you. That we're all just passing through. Strangers in a strange land. And the least we can do is help each other along the way." They talked for another hour. Frank told him about the motel's history, about the travelers who'd passed through over the decades. Families on vacation. Businessmen on the road. People fleeing bad situations. People running toward hope. The motel had been a way station for all of them. A temporary shelter in their storms. When Marcus finally stood to leave, Frank walked him to his car. "You planning to see Ruth while you're in town?" Frank asked. "That's my next stop. Give her my best. Tell her the roses she planted are coming in nice." Marcus drove to the address Ruth had given him, a small house on the outskirts of Millbrook, with a garden that was exploding into bloom. Ruth was on her knees in a flower bed, wearing overalls and gardening gloves, her gray hair tucked under a wide-brimmed hat. She looked up as Marcus approached, her face breaking into a grin. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." "Hi, Ruth." She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "You look good, Marcus. Healthy. Like you've been eating actual food instead of sadness and regret." He laughed. "I have. Dr. Howell's been on me about nutrition." "Good. She knows what she's talking about." Ruth pulled off her gloves. "Come on. Let's sit on the porch. I made lemonade." They sat in rocking chairs on her front porch, glasses of lemonade sweating in their hands, watching the world go by. Cars occasionally passed on the quiet street. A neighbor waved. A dog barked in the distance. "I went back to the spot," Marcus said. "Where I crashed." "Did you?" "Yeah. Wanted to see it in daylight. It's amazing I survived. The tree I hit, if I'd been going any faster, if I'd hit it at a different angle." He shook his head. "I keep thinking about all the things that had to go right for me to be here now." "That's one way to look at it. What's the other way?" Ruth rocked in her chair, thinking. "That you were meant to survive. That there's still work for you to do. People to help. Love to give. You sound like you believe in fate." "I don't know about fate. But I believe in purpose." And I believe when we're given second chances, we owe it to whatever force granted that chance to make the most of it. Marcus told her about Kyle Brennan, about Jennifer at the community center, about the dozen other people he'd helped over the past year. He told her about Sophie, about how their relationship was healing, slowly but surely. And Diane? Ruth asked. We're better. Not friends, exactly. But we can talk without fighting. She's seeing someone, a good guy, actually. He's nice to Sophie, which is what matters. That's mature of you. I'm trying. Marcus set down his lemonade. Ruth, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about that night a lot. About all the choices that led to it. And I realized, if the divorce hadn't happened, if I hadn't hit that tree, if you hadn't stopped, I might never have gotten help. I might have just kept spiraling until I did something I couldn't come back from. So you're grateful for hitting a tree? No. But I'm grateful for what came after. For you. For Dr. Howell. For the wake-up call. He turned to face her. You saved my life twice, Ruth. Once when you pulled me from that car, and once when you convinced me I was worth saving. Ruth's eyes were bright. You were always worth saving, Marcus. You just needed to believe it yourself. I'm starting to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, rocking gently, listening to the sounds of the spring afternoon. Marcus felt a peace he hadn't known in years. Maybe ever. Can I tell you something? Ruth said eventually. About that night? Of course. I almost didn't stop. When I first saw your car, part of me thought, someone else will come. Someone else will help him. I was tired. I wanted to get home. And it would have been so easy to just keep driving. Marcus felt his chest tighten. What made you stop? I remembered a night, 40 years ago, when my husband and I were driving through a storm. Not snow, rain. Torrential rain. And we saw a car in a ditch, and I wanted to stop, but my husband said we should keep going. Someone else would help. It wasn't our problem. Did you stop? No. We kept driving. And I regretted it for weeks. Wondered what happened to the people in that car. If they were okay. If they'd needed help we could have given. Ruth's voice was thick with old shame. So that night, when I saw your car, I thought, not again. I'm not making that mistake again. So you saved me to make up for not saving them. Maybe. Or maybe I saved you because that's who I wanted to be. The person who stops. Who helps. Who doesn't turn away from suffering because it's inconvenient. Marcus understood. He thought about all the times in his life he'd walked past homeless people, ignored calls from friends who needed him, turned away from difficulty because it was easier than engaging. How many chances to help had he missed? How many opportunities to be part of the chain? I'm trying to be that person now, he said. The one who stops. It's hard sometimes. There's so much need, Ruth. Everywhere I look, people are drowning. And I can't save everyone. No. You can't. None of us can. But you can save someone. And then someone else. And then another. And that's enough. Is it? Is it really enough when there's so much pain in the world? Ruth reached over and took his hand. Her grip was strong, her palm rough from gardening. Yes, she said firmly. It's enough. You're one person, Marcus. One small human being in a vast and often terrible world. But you're doing what you can, where you are, with what you have. That's all anyone can ask. That's all you can ask of yourself. Marcus squeezed her hand back. Thank you. For everything. For being you. For teaching me how to be better. You taught yourself. I just pointed you in the right direction. That evening, Marcus had dinner at a small restaurant in Millbrook. He sat alone at a corner table, eating a surprisingly good chicken parmesan and thinking about the past year. So much had changed. He'd changed. The broken, desperate man who'd crashed into a tree seemed like a stranger now. Someone he'd known once but no longer recognized. He was paying his bill when his phone rang. Sophie. Daddy. Guess what? What, sweetheart? I got the lead in the school play. I'm going to be Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Sophie, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Will you come to the play? Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for anything. Mommy says you can sit with us. Her and Brian. If you want. Brian was Diane's boyfriend. The good guy Marcus had mentioned to Ruth. Hearing Sophie casually include him in the family unit stung, but Marcus pushed the feeling aside. I'd like that, he said. Thank you for asking. They talked for a few more minutes about the play, about her costume, about how nervous she was. When they hung up, Marcus sat in his car in the restaurant parking lot, overcome with emotion. A year ago, he'd been recording what he thought was a goodbye message to his daughter. Now she was inviting him to her school play. Now they talked every day. Now he was part of her life again, not in the way he'd wanted, but in a real and meaningful way nonetheless. He pulled up the video he'd recorded in the frozen car. He hadn't watched it since that night. Hadn't been able to bear seeing himself so broken, so certain he was going to die. But now he hit play. The man on the screen was barely recognizable. Bruised, terrified, crying. Sophie, baby, it's Daddy. I'm sorry I couldn't call tonight. Marcus watched himself tell his daughter he loved her. Watched himself break down. Watched himself say goodbye. Then he deleted it. He didn't need it anymore. That version of Marcus was gone, saved by a stranger on a snowy highway and transformed by the hard work of healing. The present Marcus didn't need to hold on to that darkness. He called Ruth. Marcus? Everything okay? Yeah. Everything's good. I just wanted to tell you, I deleted the video. What video? The one I recorded in the car. When I thought I was dying. I kept it all this time, like a reminder or something. But I don't need reminding anymore. Good, Ruth said simply. That's good, Marcus. I'm going home tomorrow. Back to my life. But I wanted you to know, this isn't goodbye. I'm going to keep calling. Keep visiting. You're stuck with me now. Ruth laughed, warm and genuine. I can think of worse fates. Drive safe, you hear? And Marcus? Yeah. Remember what I told you. About paying it forward. That's not just advice. That's a responsibility. You've been saved. Now you save others. That's how we honor the people who help us, by becoming helpers ourselves. I will. I promise. 3 years after the accident, Marcus stood in front of a room full of people at the community center. He'd been asked to give a talk, how financial wellness can save your life, and he'd agreed, though public speaking still made him nervous. The room was packed. 50, maybe 60 people, all dealing with their own crises. Divorces. Job losses. Medical debt. The accumulated weight of living in a world that didn't care if you drowned. Marcus looked out at them and saw himself. Every version of himself he'd ever been. The angry version. The desperate version. The suicidal version. The version that Ruth had pulled from a freezing car. 3 years ago, he began, I was the worst version of myself I'd ever been. My marriage had just ended. I'd lost custody of my daughter. I was drowning in depression and rage, and I didn't know how to ask for help. He told them about the crash. About Ruth. About Dr. Howell and the long, painful work of therapy. About learning to forgive himself and accept forgiveness from others. Someone once told me, he said, that when a stranger saves you, you owe it to them to save someone else. To pay it forward. And for a long time, I didn't understand what that meant. I thought it meant I had to do something huge. Something dramatic. Save someone from a burning building or whatever. Laughter rippled through the room. But that's not it. Paying it forward means showing up. It means being present for people who are struggling. It means using your skills, your knowledge, your experience to help someone else navigate their storm. He gestured to the crowd. That's why I'm here. That's why I volunteer. Not because I'm some kind of hero, but because I was helped when I needed it most, and now it's my turn to help. After the talk, people lined up to speak with him. To get financial advice. To share their stories. To ask how he'd found the strength to keep going. One woman caught his attention. Young, maybe 25, with tired eyes and a baby in a carrier on her chest. Mr. Chen. I'm Anna. I've been coming to your sessions for a few months. I remember. You're getting your CPA license, right? She smiled, surprised he remembered. Yeah. It's been slow going with the baby, but I'm getting there. That's incredible. You should be proud. I am. But I wanted to tell you something. She shifted the baby to her other hip. 6 months ago, I was ready to give up. On everything. My marriage was falling apart, I had no money, I was barely sleeping because of the baby. And I kept thinking, what's the point? Why keep struggling? Marcus's throat tightened. He knew that feeling. Knew it intimately. But then I came here, Anna continued. And you helped me set up a budget. Showed me how to manage my student loans. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe I could do this. Maybe I could survive. I'm glad I could help. No, you don't understand. You didn't just help with the finances. You helped me see that I wasn't alone. That other people had been where I was and made it through. Her eyes filled with tears. You saved my life, Mr. Chen. I don't know if I would have made it without you. Marcus felt his own eyes stinging. Anna, that's... I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. And I wanted to tell you that when I finish my degree, I'm going to do what you do. I'm going to help people. Pay it forward. There it was. The chain, extending another link. Ruth to Marcus. Marcus to Anna. Anna to whoever she would help next. That's all I could ask for, Marcus said. Thank you for telling me. After Anna left, Marcus sat in the quiet community center, overwhelmed. He thought about Ruth's words from years ago, we're all connected. All responsible for each other. It was true. Truer than he'd ever understood. He pulled out his phone and called Ruth. They talked every few weeks now, catching up on each other's lives. She'd become something between a mother figure and a friend, someone whose opinion mattered, whose voice could calm him when the darkness crept back in. Ruth? It's Marcus. Marcus. How are you, dear? Good. Great, actually. I just gave a talk at the community center. How did it go? Really well. And Ruth, a woman came up after. Said I saved her life. Silence on the other end. Then, softly, how does it feel? Terrifying. Humbling. Like I finally understand what you've been trying to teach me. Which is? That we're all saving each other. All the time. Every small kindness, every moment of connection, it all matters. It all adds up. Yes, Ruth said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Yes, exactly. I couldn't have gotten here without you. Maybe. But Marcus, you've got to stop giving me so much credit. You did the work. You made the choices. You became the person you are now. With your help. With a lot of people's help. Of course. That's the point. We don't do this alone. We were never meant to do it alone. They talked for a while longer. Ruth told him about her grandson's college graduation, about the new flower beds she was planting, about the book club she'd joined. Normal, everyday things that made up a life. When they hung up, Marcus sat in the parking lot of the community center, watching the sun set. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, beautiful in that fleeting way sunsets always were. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Sophie, Daddy, can we go to the museum this weekend? They have a new dinosaur exhibit. Marcus, absolutely. I'll pick you up Saturday morning. Sophie, yay. Love you. Marcus, love you too, sweetheart. He stared at those words. Love you. So simple. So profound. The thing that made all of this, the struggle, the pain, the work, worthwhile. Another text, this one from Diane. Diane, thanks for being flexible with the schedule this week. Sophie really appreciates it. Marcus, of course. Anytime. Diane, you're a good dad, Marcus. I should tell you that more often. Marcus had to put the phone down. Had to breathe through the emotions that message brought up. Diane had spent so much time telling him what he was doing wrong, what he was failing at. To hear her acknowledge that he was a good father. It mattered. God, it mattered. He typed back, thank you. That means a lot. Then he drove home, through streets that no longer felt like a maze of memories and regrets, but like a path forward. A path he was choosing, deliberately, one day at a time. The next Saturday, Marcus and Sophie walked through the museum, hand in hand. Sophie was chattering about the dinosaurs, about which ones were her favorites, about how she wanted to be a paleontologist when she grew up. Or maybe a veterinarian, she amended. Or a teacher. Or an astronaut. You can be anything you want, kiddo. What did you want to be when you were little, Daddy? Marcus thought about it. Honestly? I wanted to be a firefighter. Someone who saved people. But you're an accountant. I am. But you know what? I still get to save people. Just in a different way. Sophie looked up at him, her expression serious beyond her years. How do you save people with numbers? Well, Marcus said, leading her to a bench where they could sit, sometimes people are drowning in problems they don't understand. Money problems, mostly. They don't know how to pay their bills or save for the future or get out of debt. And I can help them figure it out. Help them see a way forward. That sounds important. It is. And you know what the best part is? What? When I help someone, they often go on to help someone else. It's like a chain. One person helps another, who helps another, on and on. And it makes the whole world a little bit better. Sophie considered this. Like in that movie we watched. About the boy who does good deeds. Exactly like that. They spent the rest of the day exploring the museum, but Marcus's mind kept returning to that conversation. Sophie understood. At 9 years old, she understood the fundamental truth he'd learned from Ruth. We're all connected. We all owe each other something. And the only way to pay that debt is to pass it on. That evening, after dropping Sophie back at Diane's house, Marcus drove to a part of the city he rarely visited. The neighborhood was rough, run-down buildings, scattered trash, people huddled in doorways against the cold. He parked outside a soup kitchen where he'd started volunteering last month. It was different from the community center, more immediate, more visceral. Here, people weren't planning for the future. They were just trying to survive the present. Marcus put on an apron and joined the other volunteers serving food. The line stretched around the block, men and women and children, all hungry, all struggling. He ladled soup into bowls, handed out bread, offered what kindness he could in small gestures and brief conversations. "God bless you," an elderly man said, accepting a bowl with shaking hands. "You're welcome. Stay warm out there." Trying to. Hours passed. The line eventually thinned, then ended. Marcus helped clean up, wiping down tables and washing dishes alongside the other volunteers. "First time here, right?" a woman asked. She was maybe 50, with kind eyes and a warm smile. "I'm Paula. I run this place." Marcus. "And yeah, first month or so. You're doing great. You've got a good way with people." "Thanks. I'm trying." Paula dried a dish and set it aside. "Can I ask what brings you here?" "Most of our volunteers have a story. Something that connects them to this work." Marcus thought about how to answer. "I was saved once. By a stranger. And she taught me that the only way to repay that debt is to help someone else. Paying it forward." "Exactly." Paula nodded. "I get that. I was homeless once, 20 years ago. Addiction. Mental health issues. I was living on the streets, and I thought I'd die there." She looked around the soup kitchen. "But someone helped me. Got me into treatment. Gave me a job. And when I got stable, I decided to do the same for others. That's why I started this place." "How many people do you serve?" "About 200 a day. More in winter. It's not enough, there's so much need, but it's what we can do." Marcus felt the familiar weight of that truth. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. "I want to do more," he said. "With my financial counseling. I want to help people here too. People who are struggling with immediate survival, not just long-term planning." Paula's face lit up. "We could use that. So many of our clients have debts they don't know how to manage, or they're dealing with predatory lenders, or they need help accessing benefits they're entitled to. If you're serious about this." "I am." "Then let's make it happen. Come back next week. We'll set you up with an office space, put up flyers, see who comes." They shook hands, and Marcus felt that familiar spark of purpose. Another link in the chain. Another way to help. Over the next 6 months, Marcus's work at the soup kitchen became one of the most rewarding parts of his life. He met people whose struggles made his own seem almost trivial. Veterans dealing with PTSD and medical debt. Single mothers working 3 jobs and still unable to make rent. Elderly people choosing between medication and food. And he helped them. One at a time, one problem at a time. He negotiated with creditors, set up payment plans, connected people with resources they didn't know existed. One afternoon, a man came into his makeshift office. Late 40s, thin and weathered, with eyes that had seen too much. "You Marcus?" the man asked. "I am." "Please, sit down." The man sat, fidgeting with his hands. "Name's Tom. Paula said you might be able to help me." "I'll certainly try. What's going on?" Tom's story poured out. He'd been a construction worker until an accident left him with a back injury. Lost his job. Lost his apartment. His wife had left him, taking their kids. He'd been living on the streets for 2 years, accumulating tickets and fines he couldn't pay, which led to warrants, which made it impossible to get a job, which kept him on the streets. A vicious cycle with no apparent escape. "I'm tired," Tom said, his voice breaking. "I'm so goddamn tired of fighting. I don't know how much longer I can do this." Marcus recognized that tone. The edge of giving up. The moment before the fall. "Tom, look at me." Tom raised his eyes. "I know it feels impossible right now. I know you're exhausted. But I want you to know something, you're not alone in this. We're going to figure it out together. You can't fix this. Nobody can. Maybe not all at once. But we can start. One step at a time. Marcus pulled out a legal pad. First, let's deal with these warrants. I know a lawyer who does pro bono work. She can help us get them resolved. Then we'll tackle the debt. And once that's under control, we'll work on getting you into stable housing. I can't afford a lawyer. That's why I said pro bono. Free. There are people who want to help, Tom. You just need to let them. It took 3 months. 3 months of paperwork and court dates and endless bureaucratic hurdles. But slowly, impossibly, Tom's situation improved. The warrants were resolved. The debt was restructured. Paula connected him with a transitional housing program. And 6 months after that first meeting, Tom came back to Marcus's office. I got a job, he said, beaming. Construction again. My back's still not great, but they're willing to work with me. And I'm in an apartment now. Small, but it's mine. Marcus stood and shook his hand, then pulled him into a hug. Tom, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You did the work. I just helped you see the path. Tom pulled back, his eyes wet. What can I do to repay you? You really want to know? Yeah. When you're stable, when you're back on your feet, help someone else. That's all I ask. Pay it forward. Tom nodded. I can do that. I will do that. After Tom left, Marcus sat in his office and cried. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. For Ruth, who'd started this chain. For Dr. Howell, who'd helped him heal. For every person who'd shown him kindness when he needed it most. And for the privilege of being able to pass that kindness on. 5 years after the accident, Marcus received a call from a number he didn't recognize. Is this Marcus Chen? Yes. Mr. Chen, this is Melissa Howell. Dr. Howell's daughter. Marcus's stomach dropped. Is everything okay? I'm afraid not. Mom had a stroke 3 days ago. She's stable, but we don't know yet how much function she'll recover. She's been asking for you. Marcus was in his car within minutes, driving to the hospital where Dr. Howell had been admitted. His mind raced. Dr. Howell had been his therapist for 5 years, but she'd become more than that. A mentor. A friend. Someone who'd helped him rebuild his life from nothing. He found her room on the 4th floor. Melissa was there, along with Dr. Howell's husband, David. Dr. Howell was in the bed, looking small and fragile in a way Marcus had never seen her. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. She tried to speak, but the words came out slurred. Hey, Marcus said softly, pulling up a chair beside her bed. Don't try to talk. I'm here. Dr. Howell reached for his hand. Her grip was weak, but it was there. Melissa explained the situation. The stroke had affected Dr. Howell's speech and mobility on her left side. She'd need extensive therapy, and it was unclear if she'd be able to return to her practice. She kept saying your name, Melissa said. Over and over. We had to call you. Marcus stayed for hours, sitting beside Dr. Howell's bed, telling her about his week, about Sophie, about the work at the soup kitchen. Normal, everyday things that seemed absurdly trivial in the face of this crisis. But Dr. Howell listened, her eyes focused on his face, and he could see her understanding. See her gratitude for the normalcy. When visiting hours ended, Marcus kissed her forehead. I'll be back tomorrow, he promised. And the day after that. For as long as you need me. Dr. Howell's eyes filled with tears. She managed 2 words, barely audible, thank you. Marcus visited every day for the next month. He watched Dr. Howell go through the same kind of grueling therapy he'd once gone through, learning to speak again, to move her left arm, to walk with assistance. And he realized something profound. The woman who had saved him now needed saving herself. The chain didn't just move forward. Sometimes it circled back. He brought her books and flowers. He sat with David and Melissa, offering whatever support he could. And slowly, incrementally, Dr. Howell improved. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the stroke, she asked him a question. How's Sophie? The words were still slurred but understandable. She's good. She's 12 now. Can you believe it? Growing up so fast. Custody. I have her every other weekend. Sometimes more. Diane and I worked out a more flexible arrangement. He smiled. She's doing great in school. Wants to be a marine biologist now. Dr. Howell smiled. You, good father. I try. You taught me how. She shook her head. You, learned. Did, work. Because you showed me it was possible. Because you didn't give up on me when I wanted to give up on myself. Dr. Howell squeezed his hand. Proud of you. Marcus had to look away, overcome. I'm proud of you too. Look at you, fighting back from this. You're going to make it. Don't, no. I do. I know. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. And because you've got people who love you. Who need you. He met her eyes. I need you. You're not just my therapist, Dr. Howell. You're family. She cried then, and Marcus held her hand and let her cry. Because he understood. Because he knew what it was like to feel broken and scared and uncertain of the future. And he knew what it was like to have someone sit beside you in that darkness and refuse to let you face it alone. Dr. Howell did recover, though it took months. Her speech returned almost fully, her mobility improved enough for her to walk with a cane. She retired from active practice but agreed to supervise other therapists, passing on her knowledge to the next generation. And Marcus was there through all of it. Driving her to appointments. Helping with paperwork. Being present in the same way she'd been present for him. One day, as he was helping her into his car after a physical therapy session, she said, You know, when I first met you, I wasn't sure if I could help you. Really? You were so angry. So broken. I thought you might be one of the ones I couldn't reach. What changed your mind? Your daughter. When you talked about Sophie, I could see that you hadn't given up completely. There was still a spark. Still something worth fighting for. Marcus helped her into the passenger seat and closed the door, then got in on the driver's side. You were right, he said. Sophie was the reason I didn't give up. But you were the reason I learned how to fight. How to heal. We saved each other, then. Yeah. I guess we did. They drove in silence for a while. Then Dr. Howell said, My mother used to tell me that everyone we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. That the kindness we show might be the only kindness they receive. I didn't always believe her. Thought she was being naive. And now? Now I know she was right. We're all fighting. All struggling. And the connections we make, the help we give and receive, that's what gets us through. She looked at him. You've become one of my greatest success stories, Marcus. Not because you fixed all your problems, but because you learned to live with them. To work through them. To help others despite your own pain. I learned from the best. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about debts and obligations. About what we owe the strangers who save us. He'd spent 5 years trying to answer that question. 5 years helping people, volunteering, being present for those who needed him. And yet, the debt never felt paid. The obligation never felt complete. Because it wasn't about paying off a debt. Ruth had tried to tell him that from the beginning. It was about becoming part of something larger than yourself. Part of the infinite chain of human kindness that stretched backward and forward through time. His phone rang. Ruth. Marcus. I hope I'm not calling too late. No, I'm awake. Is everything okay? Yes, yes. I had one of my feelings. Felt like I should call you. Marcus smiled in the darkness. I'm okay. Just thinking. About? About everything. About you and Dr. Howell and Sophie. About all the people who've helped me. About whether I've done enough to pay them back. Oh, Marcus. Ruth's voice was gentle. You're still thinking of it as a debt. Isn't it? No. It's a gift. Freely given. And the only thing you can do with a gift like that is treasure it and pass it on. Which you've been doing. Which you'll keep doing. But what if it's not enough? It's always enough. Every single act of kindness is enough. You can't save the world, sweetheart. None of us can. But you can save someone. You can be someone's Ruth. Someone's Dr. Howell. And that person will save someone else. And that's how we heal the world, one person at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. A knot he'd been carrying for 5 years, finally beginning to untie. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For stopping. That night. For choosing to help instead of driving past. Oh, sweetheart. Thank you for being worth saving. For doing the work. For becoming the man you are now. They talked for a while longer, about nothing and everything. When they hung up, Marcus felt lighter. Freer. He got up and went to his daughter's room, the room she stayed in every other weekend, decorated with marine biology posters and stuffed animals and the detritus of a child growing into a teenager. He sat on her bed and pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. Sophie at the aquarium. Sophie at her school play. Sophie laughing, Sophie serious, Sophie being herself. Every one of those moments was a gift. A second chance he'd been given by strangers who'd chosen to help instead of looking away. Marcus opened a new note on his phone and started typing. Not for anyone else. Just for himself. A reminder of the truth he'd learned. What we owe the strangers who save us. We owe them our survival. We owe them our healing. We owe them our growth. We owe them our transformation into people capable of saving others. We owe them our gratitude, expressed not in words but in action. We owe them the continuation of the chain they started. We owe them our refusal to give up, even in the darkest moments. We owe them our commitment to being present for those who need us. We owe them our acknowledgement that we were never meant to survive alone. We owe them everything. And we repay that debt by giving everything we have to those who come after us. Marcus saved the note and put down his phone. Then he lay down on his daughter's bed and, for the first time in as long as he could remember, fell asleep without fear. Without doubt. Without the weight of unpayable debts crushing his chest. Because he finally understood. The debt wasn't unpayable. It was infinite. And that was okay. 10 years after the accident, Marcus stood in front of another crowd. But this time, it wasn't at the community center. It was at a conference center downtown, and the crowd numbered in the hundreds. The organization he'd helped found, Second Chance's financial network, had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. What had started as him volunteering at a soup kitchen had become a nationwide program connecting financial counselors with people in crisis. 10 years ago, Marcus told the crowd of volunteers and donors and people they'd helped, I crashed my car on a snowy highway and thought I was going to die. A stranger stopped. An old woman named Ruth Miller. She pulled me from that car and saved my life. And then she told me something that changed everything. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. She told me that when someone saves you, you owe it to them to save someone else. To pay it forward. To keep the chain going. And for 10 years, that's what I've tried to do. What all of us, he gestured to the other volunteers, have tried to do. But here's what I've learned. It's not about paying off a debt. It's about recognizing that we're all connected. That the stranger who saves you today might need saving tomorrow. That the chain doesn't move in just one direction, it's a web, intricate and beautiful, connecting all of us in ways we can't always see. He told them about Ruth, who'd passed away 2 years ago, peacefully in her sleep at 81. About Dr. Howell, who was in the audience, still strong despite her stroke. About Sophie, now 22 and in graduate school studying marine biology. About Tom, who'd gotten his life back and now volunteered at the same soup kitchen where Marcus had helped him. About Anna, who'd become a CPA and started her own program helping single mothers with financial planning. Every person I've helped has gone on to help someone else, Marcus said. And they've helped someone else. And on and on. The chain started by Ruth has touched thousands of lives now. Maybe tens of thousands. And it's still growing. He showed slides, photos of people they'd helped, success stories, thank you letters. The impact was staggering. Lives saved. Families kept together. People pulled back from the edge. But here's the thing, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm not special. Ruth wasn't special. Dr. Howell, Tom, Anna, none of us are special. We're just ordinary people who decided to stop when we saw someone in need. Who decided to help instead of looking away. Who decided to be part of the chain instead of breaking it. He looked directly at the camera recording the event, knowing the video would be shared online, watched by people he'd never meet. If you're watching this and you're struggling, please know, you're not alone. There are people who want to help you. Who need to help you, because they were once where you are, and someone helped them. Reach out. Accept help. And when you're ready, help someone else. That's all we're asking. That's all any of us can do. The applause was deafening. People stood. Marcus saw tears on many faces. Diane was there, with Sophie and Sophie's boyfriend, clapping enthusiastically. Dr. Howell was standing too, leaning on her cane, smiling through her own tears. After the speech, Marcus was mobbed by people wanting to shake his hand, to thank him, to share their own stories of being saved or saving others. He listened to each one, gave each person his full attention, because that's what Ruth had done for him. That's what mattered. As the crowd thinned, Sophie approached. Dad, that was amazing. Thanks, sweetheart. I never knew all the details. About the crash, about Ruth. You never told me the whole story. Marcus pulled her into a hug. I was waiting until you were old enough to understand. I understand now. And Dad? She pulled back to look at him. I'm proud of you. For doing this. For helping people. That means everything to me, Sophie. You know that, right? You're the reason I fought to get better. You're the reason any of this matters. Sophie smiled. I know. And I want to help too. I've been thinking, when I finish my PhD, I want to start a program teaching environmental science to underprivileged kids. Kind of like what you do, but with ocean conservation. Marcus felt his heart swell. The chain, extending to the next generation. That's incredible, Sophie. I'll help however I can. I know you will. That's what we do, right? We help each other. That night, Marcus drove to the cemetery where Ruth was buried. It was a simple grave, marked by a stone that read. Ruth and Miller 1934 to 2026. She stopped. Marcus had chosen those words himself, working with Ruth's children to design the headstone. Because those 2 words summed up everything that mattered about her life. She stopped. When she could have driven past, when it would have been easier to keep going, she stopped. And because she stopped, Marcus was alive. Sophie had her father. Hundreds of people had been helped. Thousands of lives had been touched. All because one woman, on one snowy night, made the choice to stop. Marcus knelt beside the grave and placed a bouquet of flowers, roses, Ruth's favorite. "Hey, Ruth," he said softly. "I gave a speech today. Talked about you. About what you taught me. I hope you would have been proud." The wind rustled through the trees. A peaceful sound. "I think about that night a lot. About all the little choices that led to you finding me. If you'd left your son's house an hour earlier. If you'd taken Route 12. If I'd crashed a mile further down the road. Any one of those things, and we never would have met." He sat down on the grass, not caring that it was damp. "But we did meet. You did stop. And you changed everything. Not just for me, but for everyone I've helped. Everyone they've helped. The chain keeps growing, Ruth. Just like you said it would." Marcus pulled out his phone and opened a folder of photos. Pictures of the people they'd helped through second chances. Hundreds of faces, each one representing a life that had been touched by the chain Ruth had started. "I wish you could see this. See what your kindness became. But I think maybe you knew. Even before you stopped that night, I think you knew that this was bigger than just saving one person. You knew you were starting something that would outlive both of us." He stayed until the sun set, talking to Ruth's grave like she was there listening. Telling her about Sophie, about Dr. Howell's recovery, about all the small miracles that made up his life now. Finally, as darkness fell, he stood to leave. "Thank you," he said one last time. "For everything. For stopping. For teaching me. For saving me. I'll keep the chain going. I promise. As long as I'm alive, I'll keep helping people. Keep passing on what you gave me. That's what we owe you. What we owe all the strangers who save us. We owe you the continuation of your kindness, rippling out through time, touching lives you'll never know about. We owe you forever." Marcus walked back to his car, but before he got in, he paused. A car had pulled into the cemetery, an old sedan, pulling up near a grave a few rows over. A woman got out, maybe 40, carrying flowers. She looked lost. Overwhelmed. Like she was carrying a weight she couldn't bear. Marcus recognized that look. He'd worn it himself, 10 years ago. He could get in his car. Drive home. Mind his own business. It wasn't his place to intrude on someone's grief. But he thought about Ruth. About that snowy night. About the choice she'd made to stop instead of driving past. Marcus walked over. "Excuse me," he said gently. "I'm sorry to bother you. But are you okay?" The woman looked at him, startled. Then her face crumpled. "No," she whispered. "I'm not okay. I'm not okay at all. Would you like to talk about it?" She stared at him for a long moment. A stranger, offering help for no reason other than he could. Other than he should. "I don't even know you," she said. "I know. But sometimes that makes it easier. And I'm a good listener." She hesitated, then nodded. They sat on a bench near her mother's grave. That's who she'd come to visit, and she told him everything. The job loss. The divorce. The depression. The thoughts of giving up. Marcus listened. Really listened. The way Ruth had listened to him. The way Dr. Howell had listened. And when she was done, he said, "I understand. I've been where you are. And I promise you, it gets better. If you let it. If you accept help. I don't know how to accept help. Start small. Start here." Marcus pulled out his wallet and handed her his business card. "This is my organization. We help people in crisis. Financial counseling, therapy referrals, support groups. Whatever you need. Call us tomorrow. We'll figure this out together. The woman took the card, her hands shaking. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. Marcus thought about how to answer. About debts and chains and the infinite obligation we owe to strangers who save us. Because someone did it for me once, he said simply. And she taught me that's what we're supposed to do. Help each other. Save each other. Keep the chain going. What chain? The chain of kindness. Of people helping people. It started long before me, and it'll continue long after I'm gone. But right now, in this moment, you're part of it. And so am I. The woman started crying again, but this time it was different. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Thank you, she said. Thank you so much. Don't thank me. Just promise that when you're on the other side of this, when you're better, you'll help someone else. Pay it forward. I will. I promise. As Marcus walked back to his car for the second time, he felt Ruth's presence. Not literally, he wasn't that sentimental. But spiritually. The essence of what she'd taught him, living on through his actions. He looked back at the woman on the bench, still holding his card, and he knew she'd call. Knew she'd get help. Knew that someday, she'd help someone else. The chain would continue. And in that continuation, in that infinite ripple of kindness spreading out through time and space, Ruth lived on. Dr. Howell lived on. Every stranger who'd ever chosen to stop instead of driving past lived on. We're all part of the chain, Marcus thought as he drove home through the city lights. All of us, connected by our choices to help or harm, to stop or keep driving, to open doors or close them. And what we owe the strangers who save us is this: to become strangers who save others. To be links in the chain that never breaks. To stop when we see someone who needs help. To give what we've been given. To pay it forward, forever and always, until the chain encompasses everyone, until kindness becomes not the exception but the rule, until no one ever has to face their darkest moments alone. That's what we owe. Everything. And it's the easiest debt in the world to pay, because in paying it, we become more fully human. More fully ourselves. We become part of something bigger than our individual pain, our individual struggles, our individual lives. We become part of the infinite, beautiful, unbreakable chain of people saving people, strangers becoming family, love spreading out in ripples that touch shores we'll never see. And that, Marcus knew as he pulled into his driveway, as he looked up at the stars twinkling in the winter sky, that was the whole point of being alive. To be saved. And to save. Over and over and over again. Forever.